Okay, we're recording.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. This is the May 20th meeting of the Finance Committee. And today we're focusing on DPW and the enterprise funds and water and sewer rates. We have a big agenda. So my first order of business, seeing that we have a quorum, is to make sure that members can hear and we can hear you. So I will just call out names as I see them on my screen. Mandy?
Present.
Bob?
Present.
Bernie?
Present.
Andy?
Present.
And Tom Porter told me he'd be an hour late. He's hoping to make it by 2. If Alicia joins us, I'll recognize her when she comes in. And I see that Guilford Mooring is here. We always start our meetings, Guilford, with public comments. So I want to open it for public comments. If you are in the audience and you would like to make a comment, please raise your hand. I see one, Melissa Brace A. You have joined us for comments. You can unmute and tell us who you are.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes, we can.
Yeah, my name is Andrew Brace. So I'm actually the division director of the wastewater plant. I don't know if this is the proper avenue to go about this, but I did want to speak to the fact of some of the sewer rates. I'm glad to see them increase. I don't see a ton into the budget, but I think we might need them increased more. There's a lot of stuff that needs to get fixed, and I don't know how it's gonna get fixed. Can list off a few things. Stanley Street Pump Station needs at least 20,000 for a new programmable logic controllers. It's calling our staff in multiple times, often at night. Greenleaf Sewer just collapsed. That's a 21-inch where it breaks the gravity from the West Street Pump Station. I don't know how much that's going to cost. That's can't even slip line. It's wide open, has fencing around it. 2 years ago, we had the same thing happen on Snell Street. They're doing a facility study. That's great. They're doing a chlorine study, a pH study. I don't know what that is going to amount to, but they're not like the staff rates. We can't keep people. We can't attract people. Sludge removal costs are going through the roof. Our elevator here is broken, so we have to carry stuff up and down the stairs. Our intercom's broken. Our plant call out alarm system is broken. We have broken splitter box valves. I have no control over our process because of those. The valves are bought, but I don't know of any plan to fix them. Superstructures falling apart. This plant hasn't seen any major upgrade. Northampton's doing a $30 million upgrade right now. We have a GBT that they spent $3 million on. It took them 10 years to design, which is, we're way behind the ball on a lot of stuff. Our plant water pumps, if we lose them, they're done. They don't make parts for them. It's not a way to operate, and I just don't see how. I don't know if the rates are what they should be. I'm glad they're up, but I think at a minimum, we should be matching Northampton's rates. We have 22 pump stations that each have 2 pumps at minimum and a generator on site. Operationally, Northampton has a third of the pump stations. So land area wise, our responsibility is way higher. A lot of those haven't been touched. West Street down in South Amherst, there's been no upgrades to that. We need check valves there. That's been on the list for years. So this is my last shot at speaking my mind to try and make something happen the right way, because it's not fair to our staff to work like this. It's not fair to the residents. And I'm just trying to make sure that things are properly budgeted to start addressing these issues. Sorry, I rambled a lot.
No, that's okay, Andrew. Thank you for your comment. We all listen closely. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Have a good one.
So I see Amy is here as well. So, you know, we've been asking Guilford and Amy, we've asked people when the departments come in, if you'd like to make some opening comments. You've received a list, Bernie put together the list of questions you had with a few additions from other of us, so hopefully you got one document. So any kind of opening statements, and then we'll go into what we see as the more central questions and walk through what we've seen in the budget book. So the floor is open to you if you want to lead off with some statements, comments, and we'll do, I think we'll do, do people want to do enterprise funds first or DPW first? We can do it in either order. If there's, Bernie, do you have any preference?
I don't have any preference. I was just looking to see who might be able to leave early if we do the enterprise funds first. And I don't know that that's gonna happen.
Okay. So again, Guilford and Amy, you can dictate whether you want to start off with enterprise funds or start off with the core DPW. There, DPW starts in the budget book, but
We can start with DPW first. And probably the one thing I want to lead off on is, and I put it in the comment in the answers to some of the questions. Some of these budgets have not gone up in quite a while. The actual highway budget that we're going to talk about, maybe someone will talk about, this is the budget that is for potholes and so forth. It's roughly half of what it was in, I believe it's 2005. In 2005, our O&M budget, not the personnel, just the O&M, was $155,000. And what we're proposing now is $66,611. So this is some of the things Andrew talks about, and some of the things that we all talk about has been going on for years. And somehow Amherst has to get out of the habit of not funding the services it needs or wants, and then beating the crap out of the employees who are trying to provide the service at that level. The phone calls and the hate that we're getting this year is the worst I've seen in my 20 plus years here. I've never seen residents and non-residents behave the way they are now. So to start the budget off, it's great to get a budget, but this budget that was last year's budget, which is basically the same as this year's budget for the general fund side, was empty, was zero. I had no money as of April, and we just had to move things around and pay for it out of capital and so forth. It's as you talk about, it's not fair to the schools and to the other parts of the budget we fund here. It's really not fair to the rest of us that the town just doesn't want to fund anything and hasn't come to a way to spread the pie more evenly and really truly decide what you want to do, the town wants to do, and what they want to fund. So I'm just going to start with that as my opening comments, and we can do questions as you start wherever you want to in questions.
Well, Guilford, I compiled their questions from all the members, well, most of the members of the committee. And I sort of grouped them into rough categories. If you just want to start following through the list, that would probably be a way that we could move this along.
Do you want to start with the general fund first?
Yeah.
Yeah, and can I just, I have one question, Bernie, on that opening comment that, as you know, Guilford, I sit on JCPC and there are some lines, I'm not sure which of the two lines, there were some for streetlight revamping and traffic signals that at least one of them wasn't there in the past. Does that help you on the operating budget because you've got a capital line that's been opened up for those two areas?
It does. The reason we put those forward, we had street lights, but we didn't have enough money in street lights. We added one for traffic calming and we asked for one for traffic signals. And what those do is to allow us to buy parts and have parts on hand, which you haven't been able to do because it's just, there's no money in the operating budget to buy those things. And when we were a just-in-time economy, it worked great, but for the last few years, we're no longer a just-in-time economy. You have to order it, get it, and hold it, because you just can't get things overnight to you anymore. It just seems to be impossible. So it does help.
Okay, because I just want to, I have to write up the two sections, so that's cross-listed in my thing. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And let me just say to Guilford and Amy and the DPW staff, on my behalf, I apologize for everybody who's made those angry phone calls or the bad jokes or the salacious comments that you folks have had thrown at you. I feel very badly about that. And I'm very sensitive to that, having managed towns and having been a public employee. You know, that stuff stings when you're trying to do the best you can. So as you go through it, and I hopefully, while you read these questions, you should look at them as not as accusations or gotcha kinds of things. These are genuine questions. We're looking for some information. We're looking for some answers. And frankly, some of the questions are designed to give you folks the opportunity to voice your concerns. So please go ahead.
Right. So the first question is about funding for the department on the general side. And the question asks, what's our funding, taxation, local funds, state aid, and recurring programs, and then grants. So as I answered, the general fund side of the DPW basically only gets funds from the general fund of the government. We get general capital, and we get the O&M and personnel services. The only reoccurring grant we get is the Chapter 90 grant from the state. It's not really a grant, it's a program, because you're guaranteed the money. You don't have to apply for it and compete for it. You get it every year. And that's really just for heavy road repair and heavy equipment for repairing those roads. That's all you can spend it on. You can also spend it on design of the repair of the roads, but that's all you can spend it on. We do get other grants. There's mostly very small grants. We've gotten some small grants to put some RFPs in. We're hoping to get a couple more grants for those. Then we get some project specific grants. And those are things like the MVP program. We have two grants for the MVP right now. Those replace culverts or work on replacing culverts. We get community development block grant money sometimes to do some sidewalk improvements. So those are specific grants we get. Are there any questions on that one?
No, we're looking just to.
Would it be helpful if I put the questions up on the screen?
Yeah.
Sure, and Guilford sounds like he gave us written responses, but I don't think we've seen any. So
Yeah.
Guilford, if you did written responses, we haven't seen them.
Oh, sorry. Nice. Okay.
Okay, just so you know that we're not.
All right. No problem.
Questions you've answered, we haven't seen the answers.
Okay. So the next one is how will the freezing of 1 FTE affect us? Basically, the highway division has been 2 to 3 people short for the last year or so. And as people have noticed, we have been a little slower in getting the potholes. It's taken a little while longer to mow grass on the side of the road and do some other things we do. And that's just because we've been this one person. We've been 2 to 3 people short for a while. Freezing 1 FTE just means there's not even the possibility of hiring the person, but we've kind of been going through this phase where we're losing people to higher paying jobs. Some of them aren't as well. We're losing them to higher paying jobs in other communities and other private industries. So we've been in the hole for a while. We've adjusted our salary some, but we do need to adjust more. We're trying to make some changes in negotiations. Hopefully those will come to fruition. What approaches are being considered for improving purchasing? We've joined several more of the purchasing cooperatives. Those actually help us with our procurement. The only problem with any purchasing cooperative is you do pay a fee to be a member. It's not a annual fee, but once you buy something, there's a fee that's associated with what you purchase that has to be paid as well. But we've done that more to save time than to do anything else, and those have worked well. We do have to stay within the state laws for purchasing. If we could actually get the governors, I think the governors proposed that change the purchasing limits for municipalities to be the same as what they do for schools. That if they do that, that would be great. You cannot buy anything under $10,000 anymore. Nothing. You cannot get it's it's ridiculous. You can't buy a valve, you can't buy a pump, or if you do, they're very small. It'd be much easier, much quicker if we had the $50,000 limit for purchasing using best practices, the 50 to 100 for written bids, and then 100,000 for formal bidding, which is what the schools can do, but towns can't because we're supposedly staffed better to handle it. But it's really the market's moved. Those numbers don't work. What strategies are being employed to address the retirement and turnovers? Again, we're hoping to make some changes in some of the contracts to attract more people. I'm not sure we'll get very far with those. We really are struggling to get people to come here. Most people who we do kind of get to come here, they come for a reason, such as they get a license and then move on to another paying job, or just a stopgap in between who they are and where they want to be, which is not bad. But we just if we're going to be that way, we need to realize that and maybe change how we staff. So maybe we're staffed a little heavier. So when we lose a person, that doesn't throw us in the turmoil. But that's just something to think about. With municipal operations expenses being level funded, what's the effect that this has on the provision of services? I kind of talked about that in my open remarks. We're $66,000 is all you have in highway. Of that 66,000, 21,000 is earmarked for potholes. So far, we spent $65,000 in potholes. So that means something has to give somewhere along the road. Roadside maintenance. Oh, sorry. Road and sidewalk maintenance. How do we determine what streets we pave? We've talked about that at TSO, and I think everyone was sent sort of a little brief. We have our pavement management system. That's what we start our pavement list with. We do some analysis and look at some of the changes that happen which aren't accounted for in the pavement management systems, and then we come up with the list of what we're going to pave. We always want to pave more, but funding is just not there to pave more. So that's kind of how that list is made. The 2 mile, doing 2 miles a year, where does that come from? That's been around forever. It's not set in stone. Most of the time we pave more than 2 miles. We get 2 or 3 times that with water and sewer projects and other projects, the grant projects. But that's just something that's been around. If we wanted to look at changing that, I'd be more than happy at changing it because there's no rhyme or reason to really why it's there. How do CARP projects different from the roadside annual paving contract? The CARP stands for Concrete Asphalt Repair Program. And we were trying to come up with a cute acronym for it, and that's the best we could do. We wanted to say something else, but we couldn't make it do that. It just wouldn't work. We couldn't get the R to come before the A, no matter how hard we tried. So this is more for sidewalks and for small repair jobs. It's not for big paving jobs, big road projects. So this is really what we use to do the sidewalks. It works really well. We put it out as a 3-year bid, and we give a range of projects we might do in that 3 years, and then we can add things to it if something comes up. We can take something off and adjust. It works really well. We're in the second year of our second contract doing this. So we've been doing it now for 5 years, and it's worked relatively well. The only drawback to this bid is that when we get a community development block grant project that we need to do, we can't add it to this bid. We have to actually bid that out separately because it's it's federal money and it has federal requirements. So, but it's been really good. We like it. Sorry, I'm just trying to find myself. So how do we balance maintenance of existing infrastructure with the expansion and development of new structures? Basically, we kind of put off what can be put off, and we do what has to be done when it has to be done, or after it has to be done. It's kind of how it happens. There's usually not enough money to do everything you need to do. We are building lots of new stuff. New stuff is great. It gives you a one-time fresh canvas, but in 5-10 years, you need to do some maintenance to it, and there's no funding mechanism in place to come in and do those midlife overhauls. It just doesn't exist. The track and field questions, we have not been involved in discussing how the new track and field at the regional high school is going to be maintained. We know that right now they're pushing to have a contractor maintain that field for the first few years, and we're happy with that. But we really haven't been involved in that discussion. The status of the MOAs for field usage and maintenance, those have been drafted and they've been forwarded to the schools and they've been talked about, but they're not really moving. They're kind of languishing. So that's kind of where it is. The service levels and treating grounds division is kind of a mishmash of how we account for it. Some things like the pools, there's 3 pools, so it says 3 pools. As you pointed out, softball and baseball say 20. That's not 20 distinct fields. That's 20 times we set up the facility for use. So that's how that one's accounted for. Many years back, we had a grant to do to track what we did in tree and grounds by man hours or person hours. And we set that up and we were doing it, but when the grant went away, we weren't keeping track. Maybe that's what we should do in the future, is kind of come back to that, and that would actually explain it a little better of how many man and person hours we're doing on a maintenance activity instead of how many individual things we maintain or how many times we maintain something. But that just requires a little extra effort and time. The status of the MOA regarding mowing in the school areas, is in the same place as all the other MOAs with the schools. We do have one change in that, and that is the fact that one of our employees has now become a school employee, and he was instrumental in keeping the fields and grounds taken care of, and now he's at the schools, and we've actually seen the schools pick up and do a lot more maintenance around the grounds because he's there. It's Adam Feltman. Adam Feltman went from tree and grounds to the schools, and he has his people at the schools actually doing more than was done before, which is good, and that would take some pressure off of us. The last question of tree and grounds is the lighting at the fields. We do not control the lighting at the fields. When you could turn a light on and when you turn the lights off is controlled by the teams using the field. So we have no input into that. Climate changes, climate and environment. So we've looked at a few things, looked how we could change and maybe add some EV equipment. In the heavy equipment world, EVs are really not making it very well. Hybrid equipment is. The hybrid equipment may be the way this actually works out for heavy equipment use. So we've been paying attention, we've been looking at things, but there's nothing really out there that would fit. Even if we take our small pickup trucks that we use for certain things, we might be able to make them electric, but our building won't support charging electric vehicles. We would have to bring in a whole new electric service and have a whole new way of storing and charging those vehicles at the building we're going to leave. So that really doesn't make sense, but we would have to do that if we wanted to convert some of our smaller EV vehicles or smaller trucks that we don't use for plowing into EVs. And there's probably only about 6 or 7 of those in the fleet that you could turn solely into EVs.
That also part of the question is also beyond decarbonizing, is that term, your equipment, what other changes might the department have to make? And this happens to be my question or one of my questions. And I ticked off a few other things that might be part of Amherst's role as a climate leader.
So right now, with the asphalt and paving work, there's not many of the contractors in this area actually looking to use something that's a little more decarbonized in their products. So that there's not much of that change going on in that world. There is a company that is a local in the Western Mass that's looking at making a green concrete or a green cement. So we may actually see some of that rolling out in the next few years as using more earth-friendly or environmentally friendly methods for making the concrete. Mandy Jo?
Yeah, to follow up on this question, what about small equipment instead of the heavy equipment? So mowers and handheld trimmers and things like that, or non-handheld. Electrifying some of that. There's some products out there that are not just electric, but also more robotic that can be programmed that then can potentially run overnight where you have an employee set it up and then the next morning come and pick it up, which I can imagine might save staff time, right? What's the department's sort of stance or aim for the small equipment, electrifying our small equipment?
We have been looking at the smaller equipment. Alan Snow's been looking at how some communities actually do their small equipment. Our budget doesn't support it. If we wanted to buy the equipment, it would not support it. You do have to have more batteries to have a work day. So you're not buying fuel, but you're going to buy batteries. And then you do have to replace the batteries on a pretty regular basis because they do wear out. We've looked at it at the dog park. We do have some electric mowers and trimmers and so forth. It's kind of a test bed that they have some of that equipment at. So we are kind of looking at it. One of the communities Alan Snow was looking at is it's in the eastern part of the state. I can't really think of the name, but they've actually taken their tree and grounds division and they pretty much made it all electric, but it was quite an expense and to do that. It can be done, but right now, then again, our O&M level doesn't support it. We do have a robotic line painter. It's really good. You set it up, you let it go, and it does line painting for fields. It's not recommended that you leave it alone. It is light enough to walk away. So they recommend that you let it go do its business and you do something else. And that's what we do. We get it started and then the guys can go do something else, but they can also keep their eye on it so it doesn't disappear. The line painter is great. Maybe if we find a good mower that is robotic that can do sort of the same thing, that would work as well too. But there is a lot of changes going on. And hopefully in 5-10 years we'll get there. So vehicles, there's 53 vehicles, but more are listed in the maintenance. That's true. I don't actually understand where the 53 came from. So I need to do a little more research on where that number came from. We do have in our fleet, there are vehicles we pretty much use every day, and they get a great deal of use. We do have some spare vehicles because we do hire part-time workers in the summer, and we have part-time interns who work for us. So we need to have need to have the ability to move around as well. And then we have the larger vehicles, which are for the bigger projects we do, which we haven't done as many lately, and for basically snow removal. Those pieces of equipment, they try not to use them as much because they're meant for a specific purpose, and we keep those longer than we do the smaller vehicles. Will the EPA Phase 2 stormwater management program, what will happen if the government decides to do away with it? Personally, it'll be great. That's one less permit report we have to send in every year, but it's pretty much if the Phase 2 stormwater program goes away, then the state will have to come up with a program they want to implement, because right now the state has no ability to truly implement that program on the community. They chose not to be a authorized agent for the EPA, so they could pass some law regulations to allow them to take it over. But if the federal government says we're not going to do it anymore, it would just kind of go by the wayside for a little bit. We would probably keep doing many of the things we're doing because we've been able to do some pretty interesting things with it. We've already gone through all our outfalls. We've done testing on our outfalls. We know where some of our problem areas are. We actually have DEP came up to talk to us about a problem area that they want to study more. And we're setting up a program with DEP that will do the lab testing and work with them to do the sampling to study this area that is kind of concern right now. So that's the EPA Phase 2. The DPW inventory of culverts, we do not have. We know where all our culverts are. They're on the GIS system. If you go to the town GIS system and look at the utility mapping, all the culverts are listed, or all the culverts are shown where they are. Do we have a list of all of them and a priority for them? No. We have certain sections of culverts, some that are in the watershed, some that are outside the watershed. Those are put in an inventory system, and those we have classified as which ones we want to replace. And we use that list to apply for grants. The 2 MVP grants, Amy got those. Those are culvert replacements, and they're moving forward right now. One was bid and under construction soon, Amy?
Yeah, we just, I think actually later this week, we have the pre-construction meeting with the contractor. So, and that's for the culvert on Potwine and a culvert on Middle Street to get replaced. $1 million grant. So, yay.
And then we put in for another MVP grant to replace the culverts on West Potwine. West
Pomeroy, and we put in for another grant this year, and it would be the design. So we'd be about a year away from construction, but it was for one on West Pomeroy and a different one on Potwine, so that both sides of the soccer field can get taken care of.
And then the last two questions about the facility. Yes, we do want a new DPW building. Would like to move that along a little faster and it's going. And we were going to put in a state-of-the-art ventilation system in this building, but that has been off the books for many years now, a couple of years now, at least. It's just the retrofit to the building is harder than we thought, and then the cost is pretty expensive for the retrofitting into an existing building. So that's off the books. Our best course of action is to go ahead and carry out the plan we've kind of come to, which is build some swing space at Ruxton, and then decide if we're going to build something here at the DPW or start the replacement at the DPW. But that's something that definitely needs to happen.
Guilford, on that, and we don't want to go into detail on this because I know it's still on the get it started list, but on thinking of Ruxton, if we do a swing space there, could we build it in a way that it becomes permanently useful, for trying to think of splitting some of the activities? And one of the things, I live out near there, so I can walk around. It's an interesting site that could be useful. So I don't know whether that's part of the thinking, that I know swing space, but then constructed in a way that it might be more permanently useful once it's not just swing.
Yes. I mean, even if once you build the swing space and when you kind of move into it, we'd still be divided up during the construction of the new building. And then the new building, if it's at the DPW site, won't be big enough for everything we need. So we would then have to we probably continue to use the Ruxton site as swing space. So you move winter equipment over there in the summer, and we'd move summer equipment there in the winter. And it would be sort of more of a formalized storage area on the off season for equipment, which is what we're looking at. And that would give us enough space to then have, if we want to stay at the main DPW yard, to have what we need at the main DPW yard and work out of that during the season. So yes, we're looking at making that more than just a temporary spot. We'd want to make that a little more permanent.
Okay, and I wasn't thinking just about equipment, but it could be a repair shop too. But again, I'm jumping off into a world where it would be nice to get started on this. And just while we're at it, we optimistically at the council set a goal of getting through a schematics design soon, so that we could be doing this a year from now. Is that feasible, do you think, moving that fast?
Yeah, so if we're told to go ahead and start doing it, we can. The issue, the thing we need to do next in the whole process is to go ahead and come up with a way to meet the OPM requirements. This is going to be a multi-year project, and it's going to go beyond my time here in the DPW. So we need to bring in someone who can be the owner's project manager, which is required by state law, and work with the designer and then move the project forward.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know if there's any other questions regarding the DPW budget.
No, I don't think so. One of the things I thought was interesting, Amy, when you jumped in with $1 million for the very first question was dollar sources. And I think for outsiders, we would have to piece together you're getting money some years for some functions, and then there's Chapter 90, which, just so you know, it doesn't appear anywhere in the budget book. I can go online and find out what Amherst's allocation is. So, and I'm sure you know what the 90 and then the fair share is augmenting it, and that amount, at least what I found, is varied from 100,000 one year, 300,000 another year. So it's not, the base is kind of predictable and the other piece varies, but it's been very useful to hear this, because there's some parts that require staff effort to get, and then there's other parts that you get that supplement the inadequate funding you get out of our budget for roads. So thank you.
And one thing that one thing that didn't get mentioned, and a couple of things that didn't get mentioned, but the one I want to raise right now is the Commonwealth has moved more and more towards using, instead of dumping all the money into Chapter 90 and having it go to cities and towns, they've been peeling some off in making those is grants that you have to compete for. So we, one of the things we need to talk with our rep and senator about is giving us a break and putting more money into Chapter 90 and maybe looking at how Chapter 90 is allocated, the formula for allocating Chapter 90, and being a little more generous with towns our size.
I see, Mandy, your hand's up. And if I fail to see your hand, just check it. And I think, yeah, we've got enterprise funds up, but go ahead, Mandy.
No, I just wanted to follow up and state that on the procurement issue that Guilford, you talked about, and how it doesn't match the schools, and you'd love it upped. It is one of the MMA's legislative priorities to get that through in the MEA, the municipal, whatever it is, upping municipal stuff. I know the governor reproposed it, but the MMA has that as a priority.
That's good because we really want it.
Yeah, it would help y'all a lot.
Amy.
I wanted to comment on, Bernie's comment about the state. It's great that the state is offering up money for these grants, but I will also say, like you said, the grants, it requires staff time to obtain them. And then, we kind of kid around the office about how there's no such thing as free money. There's always additional reports, additional requirements, things like that go along with it. And so, yeah, I urge you guys to continue to push for legislation. Things like, Chapter 90 does also have a lot of other requirements, but just things that they can give us that allow us to be a little more flexible and do what we want to do and not have it be this competitive situation to try and obtain those grants. It's just going to allow us to put our resources towards actually doing the work and not just managing some of these grants or trying to compete to even get them.
Thank you.
I'll just add one more thing too, since we're talking about all these changes in the state. The state, for some reason, has decided that municipalities are not capable of choosing contractors who are capable of doing their work. So in our paving world, we've actually been required to submit paving. If it's a paving job over $50,000, you have to go through the Mass DOT pre-qual office and get a pre-qualified contractor to do the work. It seems like the state wants to run the municipalities. So as you talk to our legislatures, that's the question: is why? Why do you add the extra burden of paperwork and overhead to us to do something? It's not just the fact we have to compete for grants and stuff. They're now giving us rules and saying you must do it this way, which means more time and effort. So just so you know.
And Guilford, one resident who heard the presentation you did at District 2 on a discussion of the road going over to Belchertown, that the Belchertown side was nicely paved and the Amherst side wasn't. You said we took it over and the state does Belchertown. Can we ever reverse that decision if we decided that wasn't the right decision? Now that we can ask the state to take it back. It was.
I don't know how you would do that. I think it would start with a letter to the. I think we could always ask this and then take something back, but I'm not sure they would.
Yeah, because I've noticed I live on 63, and when they did it, it's lasted a really long time. What they did was all the way down to the dirt. It wasn't fixing the road. It was redoing it.
Yes.
But thanks.
And just so you know, 63 was that leftover money. They found some leftover paving money, and then they quickly threw together some paving projects, and that was how 63 got paved.
Yeah. Well.
All right. So enterprise.
Yep.
So the first question is, we have some significant water and sewer changes and rate changes. Are these changes structured to cover the current capital improvements, or is there a margin for future? And the answer is yes and no. It covers everything we know now that we're going to do, but it does not cover really the future except for a few things. In the water side, we have done everything we need to do except one item that was in the the Tata and Howard water system study. It's basically a facility plan for the water. In that study, they recommended doing a bunch of things. When we finish Centennial, the only thing left to do will be to upgrade our interconnection between Hadley and Amherst. They recommended that we make that more of a formal fixed interconnection, which right now we can only provide water to Hadley. Hadley cannot provide water to us. So that's the only thing left. Wastewater, we have a lot more to do. We are a little behind. When we were talking about doing facility plans in the past, the question always came up with was, what was the permit going to be? Well, we have our new permit. We know what the new permit is. So now we can move forward and try to look at the plant and go through what we need to do. If the permit had gone one way, our plant would change drastically and we'd be moving the plant in that direction. So now we have a chance to do that work. We do not know the cost of that work, but we'll work through that and get a plan together, and then we can look at how the rates need to go. Data from the University of North Carolina, the Amherst says what our rates are within the norm for communities in Massachusetts. Are there any innovations employed by other communities that suggest ways we might control cost? There really is. We do look at other communities. We talk to other communities. We look at the different studies coming out. Everyone's having problems controlling costs right now. There's really no magic bullet for being able to keep in your budget and to save money beyond what you're already doing. Power costs are going up almost routinely. Disposal of wastewater is going up. With the finding of PFAS in the sludge in Maine, communities are less inclined to land apply wastewater sludge to their land as a fertilizer, because you can turn the land into a PFAS repository, which is what Maine is facing right now with their program. So there's very few really good, really innovative things out there. The one thing that the states are pushing is new types of meters and new types of reading meters. It's basically to have so people can know instantaneously, and we can know instantaneously when something breaks or something's wrong, or if they're using too much water. The state DEP sees that as a way to inform people and help them control and conserve water. That's one of the things that's really kind of being pushed, and that's one of the things we are working on. That we're slowly converting our meters over. We're 2/3, or maybe 2/3 done right now, and then we're buying some additional equipment next year that will actually allow us to read more often and develop a database for people to use better with the smart technology. The next question is about the comprehensive assessment for a town water system, and that's what Tata and Howard did. We probably do need to do another one in a few more years after the Centennial Water Treatment Plan is back online. But we did have one, and like I said, we've done everything but one. We just have one more thing to do according to what was recommended in that plan. We currently treat water as a commodity, charging for the amount used rather than the service with a significant amount of fixed cost. If the idea of a fixed meter or base charge that would cover fixed costs coupled with a rate that varies with usage to cover variable expenses and encourage conservation under consideration. That's been talked about between the council and us for a while. It's just not moved anywhere. There's not been much more discussion about it. We're happy to sit down and talk about it. The DPW would really recommend going to a tiered rate system in water, where you have a base rate, and if you want to have a conservation rate below the base rate, and then have a bad user rate above, or two bad user rates above, that would be something we would really like to look into. I don't think you're really gonna find that you can have a fixed cost that everyone pays that's going to be equitable. Because do you make a fixed cost for a homeowner the same as the university, or do you make a fixed cost based on meter size? The university only has a few meters, they're large meters, but then some of the apartment complexes have the same size meter. So it's kind of difficult, but we're happy to sit down and talk about it. And I see lots of questions.
Yep. Mandy and Bernie, I mean,
Yeah, I guess my follow-up on that is, how do we get moving on that? Is it just you guys doing it and coming to us with a proposal? Is it putting something on a council agenda to have a vote to ask you to do it? Like, how do we move on restructuring our water and sewer rates?
and Mandy, I just wanted, you weren't on finance when we actually got a package of options about 3 or 4 years ago, and one was the diameter of the pipe.
Yeah.
So, so that, and then it stalled. Yeah. So I'll keep on your question. We had kind
How
of.
do we move it?
So and then Bernie, was that a similar, like, how do we stop from thinking about it 4 years ago to?
Yeah, my point is, I mean, I've looked at, I did a base rate plus meter charge when recommended that to the select board when I was in Deerfield, and that's in place. And it works, at least in that small town. And I've looked at other systems where you vary the charges by meter size. What I'd suggest, to fall off the fence here, is we have the DPW has a tiered rate system, which is sort of like what they have in Hadley. And I think Hadley also requires you to have 2 meters if you have a sprinkler system or for your lawn or something like that. And then they have an ag rate for people who need to use the water for animals or to wash vegetables. So the way they move this along is to hire someone, a company, to come in and look at how we bill and make recommendations regarding either or both, do a series of what ifs, either a base charge plus variable or a tiered charge, what that would mean for the town, how difficult would it be to implement that. One of the things that we were concerned about in Deerfield, for example, was we have some houses that aren't used year round. So a base charge meant we collected money from that house, whether use the water or sewer or not. I don't know if that's going to be something that would have a factor in here in Amherst, but there are engineering firms out there who have the software and the person power to do a study like this pretty readily. And everyone frowns on consultants, but they have their point and they have their way. And this would give the council and DPW a basis for making a decision whether we do nothing, whether we go to tier rate, whether we go to a base rate. Should be sufficient to get people to fall off the fence and do something with this.
I see, Melissa, your hand is up as well.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that when we set the rate this year, one of the things that we put in there as part of the studies to do ongoing is to have our whole process for setting rates to be reviewed by a third party, just because we've been doing the the rate setting, our formulas to do that, is something that Amherst has been doing for a long time. And so I think that that was one of the things that we talked about and built in for part of the studies that we're going to do holistically on the water and sewer enterprises, is to have our process on how we're estimating those rates. You know, are we incorporating, you know, enough of the capital, that kind of thing? And also, you know, what is the appropriate rate setting method? That we had done it differently in the past, and Amy knows more about this than I do. But I believe this is part of the conversation we started to have a few months ago on, you know, how do we set the rates, and should we have someone else look at this, and, you know, what is the best method for Amherst, not what is Hadley do or Deerfield do, but what is the best method for Amherst based on our information. And maybe she's shaking her head, so maybe she can confirm that I'm remembering that correctly.
Yep, that was our conversation, and I believe that's built into, you know, what we're looking at this year.
The only drawback on that is for the sewer side, we do need to complete the facility plan before we have the right numbers for the sewer side. The water side, we pretty much have a good idea of what we should put in for capital. So that side we could start that at any time. And if you wanted to actually talk more about what the goals are before we bring the company in, so we can tell the company what our goals are, that would be a good thing to do as well.
Thank you.
Next question was, how are water restrictions going to affect us? To tell the truth, we really don't know. We do know we should see a drop in consumption, and that means a drop in revenue. We do think we might have an increase in cost because there are reporting and enforcement requirements from the state. So when there's a drought declared, we're supposed to go out and do enforcement and make sure people are not watering on the wrong days and watering on the right days and so forth. And then we're supposed to keep records of who we find violating the restrictions and what do we do to those people, and we have to report that back to DEP. So we haven't, this is the first year for us, so we expect this to be a learning year, maybe next year to be a learning year 0.2. But we'll slowly figure out what this is going to cost us and what DEP wants. DEP hasn't given us a structure yet on how they want this information reported back to us, which is normal. So we imagine that we'll report it wrong the first year and then be told they want it this way a second year. Mandy Jo?
Yeah, with that reporting, or more over the enforcement part of that, have you worked with our building commissioner and inspection services, since they're hoping to do more proactive on the inspection side of buildings to, are they the ones that could also do that to sort of be more efficient in things like this?
There's a possibility. We've talked about using getting a lot of people involved in this. Right now, it's definitely falling to the water departments from the state side. So we have to figure out how we're going to be able to manage it and then bring people in to help. So that's what we're trying to do right now. The next question is the difference between the budget of other water revenues and the actuals in that line. And that's not, I can't answer that question.
I can take that one if you like.
Thanks, Holly.
So the difference in FY24, and the reason why the FY24 number is so big, is that we used retained earnings in FY24 of $108,000, and we also had some returned unused capital items that were close to $60,000, and so they just got dumped into that other water revenues. So 168,000 of it, if those two things had not happened, it would have been 75,000 and more in line with the prior years and our budget, but it was a one-time use of free cash and returned capital that we had to return back to the water fund, and so that's where it showed up.
Thanks.
The next question is, why are personnel expenses increasing 11%? This kind of goes back to what was talked about earlier in public comment and by us as we started. We have some things we're proposing in the contract negotiations that if they're accepted and move forward, will hopefully entice people to stay with the town. And that's why there's an increase here in the budget. We've already budgeted for most of those things, and hopefully that'll be successful. On the sewer side, the budget indicates a comprehensive wastewater treatment facility study. We're hoping to start that as soon as the budget's approved in July 1. It is anticipated to take a year to do this. That's what our consultant says they recommend for us to do, and we'll move forward with that. So that's the plan. So July 1st is a Monday, actually. So if the budget's approved, it's a Tuesday. We'll be able to move that week, hopefully, and start at least get the paperwork up to town hall to be signed, and then get them moving on the project. In sewer, planned capital expenditures decreased by 17.6%. This is based on the GBT project and the things that were being spent at that time. So the GBT and some of those expenses was put on the capital, the one-time capital, and also on the bonding. So the one-time capital items are coming off, and then the bonding, the rest of it's being bonded. So there's a drop in the actual number of what is on the capital plan. But the capital plan is actually more than it was the year before. So we actually asked for additional items. So it's not that it's decreasing to a really, really low point. It's just that that larger project money is dropping off. What efforts are underway to identify illicit discharges and eliminate them? This is more of the stormwater program. And as I was saying, we've been finding some interesting things that we've gone around and sampled discharges, stormwater discharges. We found one area where the stormwater discharge actually did have a leak from the sanitary sewer into it. We were able to correct that leak. Hopefully when we start sampling this summer, we'll make sure we actually eliminated that leak into the storm drain. So that work's ongoing with our stormwater program right now.
Guilford, that also includes, though, like we have a 3-year contract for slip lining to try to slip line some of our sewer lines that we know have groundwater infiltrating and stuff like that. So, so there is some work on that as well. It's not illicit condition, but it is I&I into the sewer system that we're working to reduce.
Although when the water table is really low, I&I sections become infiltration sections where all the sewer infiltrates into the ground instead of going to the sewer plant. So
we just don't talk about that.
I recall from past discussions that there was going to be some effort to look at where there are illicit connections from either downspouts, homeowner, septic system, not septic system, homeowners pumping water into the storm drain through their basement connections, things like that. Is there any plans to go forward with the site by site kind of work like that, or is that just too much to think about right now?
No, we're hoping to get more involved in that. Most of the wastewater staff do a good deal of the videotaping, and we found a lot of that through videotaping our sewer lines. But because the staff shortages and certain positions being vacant. We haven't done as much in the last 2 years, and hopefully when we get those positions filled, we actually start moving forward again with doing more of that. And the camera actually does really well catching those connections.
Yeah, I think we did a lot of evaluation of at least kind of narrowing the entire system down to some areas. It was like 2018 or 2019, we did a comprehensive look at, you know, the pumping rates at all the pump stations to start to even focus in on some areas. And we were making some progress to, you know, kind of dive a little deeper, but that's where some of the vacancies just mean that it's unfortunately just been stalled for a little bit with some vacancies.
So given the cost of stormwater management, would it be prudent to create the stormwater management enterprise fund? At this point, I don't really believe it is, and I think I've said this is pretty much what I've said before. Once we get the next permit, so if the stormwater permit gets renewed and we have to apply for our second permit, at that time, we'll actually be required to take the information we've gathered over these years of the first permit phase, and then we have to come up with some projects to start eliminating some of these things. And at that point, some capital items will start coming forward, and that might be the point where we say, okay, we need to develop a funding source and go and create a stormwater utility. I said this a few times, I'm not sure if people remember it, but for whatever reason, when the stormwater phase 2 program came out, Amherst got left off. And we went through the first cycle of the stormwater permits being told not to worry about it. And then when the second cycle came, we were told to apply. And in reality, the third cycle is coming up. So that would be our second cycle, not our third cycle. So we're just a little farther behind other communities. It was just something that happened. It was, I think when we were talking to EPA about it, they were saying they confused Amherst with UMass Amherst and thought we were the same thing. So they made UMass Amherst part of the program, but not Amherst. So it was kind of cool to be left out, and I was excited. I thought it was great. So next question, sludge removal cost increases were a big driver for last year's increase. We're on a 2-year contract right now. We're on the first year of the 2-year contract. Next year will be the second year. The actual contract increase is 8.5% is what we're looking at. And we accounted for that in the budget. So right now we're looking okay. For 27, FY 27, we'll be looking at probably another number. And we'll see where that goes. Our not being able to comply with our percentage of tests that we don't comply with EPA. Those are various tests. Our chlorine not being chlorinated, our E. coli growing E. coli and so forth. The pH study and the chlorine study, there's 2 things we kind of hope will give us some feedback on that. pH study is, you know, will it be easier for us to meet our requirements if we actually adjust the pH in the water? Right now, we do not make any adjustment to the wastewater pH. And sometimes that can cause problems in the system. And then we violate our permit or fail a test. The chlorination, if we have better control of our chlorination, maybe we might be able to also do it as well. So those are things we hope come out of those 2 studies and bring us more into compliance with our permitting and testing requirements. Solid waste. We're gearing the RFP. We've heard that everybody wants to keep the transfer station. So any RFP we put out for solid waste services, we hope, or we're actually going to say the transfer station's got to stay. So we're hoping to keep that in there. How reliable are the revenue sources at the transfer station? And is it possible for alternative income? The only source of alternative income at the transfer station right now is the cell tower. So if they add more levels and more users on the cell tower, we could get more money. The only other thing, if you wanted to add more revenue sources at the transfer station, is you'd have to add programs. So if you wanted to add some type of composting program on site, but then again, that has startup costs for doing it, as well as the potential for more revenue. So it's kind of a mixed bag on what you can do there to increase the revenues. Really, it's the only revenue increases if we raise the rates for disposal and raise the sticker rates. I do
So
not know
then-
that.
Then I'll grab the next one. So that is
Cool.
correct. The solar array revenue got mixed in with the cell tower revenue. Instead of getting added to the miscellaneous line, it is in that line. We will make sure that that gets corrected for next year.
Then I think I'll let Jen LaFountain answer the next section if she'd like. But Mandy Jo has a question.
Yeah, I wanted to go back to the waste hauler bylaw, but thank you for answering. I was the one that asked the solar array revenues. I just wanted to make sure they were still there when they said they were somewhere. So it's nice to know where they are. What is the reason you would recommend keeping a transfer station open if we went to universal, if the waste hauler bylaw mandated everyone, or I guess said curbside pickup for everyone? Why would you still be recommending a transfer station remain open?
So at bailout, which happens twice a year, that's when all the students either go home for Christmas or go home for good at the end of the semester in the spring. There's a lot of waste that gets landowners are stuck with a lot of waste, and people need to get rid of a lot of stuff. And the waste haulers we've had in the past have not been interested in picking up more. So that's one of the reasons, is it gives us an option for that. The second one is that many of the apartment complexes, they use us to get rid of their big and bulky waste items, mattresses, appliances, and so forth. We do a really good business with them, and we're a very big asset for them. So we wouldn't really want to get rid of it completely. I mean, some waste hauler may offer us a huge deal and say, if you do it this way and do all this, we can give you this price and do it. Then we might consider doing away with the transfer station, but I don't know if that would really come about.
Thanks.
If I may, you have to, I think you have to give people a somewhat convenient way of getting rid of bulky items, maybe one-time only kinds of disposable stuff. In other places, it's usually where there isn't a transfer station in the town, there's a transfer station that's operated by a consortium or by a county. We don't have that. So giving, if you don't give people an easy alternative to get rid of the junk chair, you're going to still end up getting rid of the junk chair, except find it in the woods on town property.
So I think we're on to transportation, and we do have to get to rates as well. So if people are comfortable moving on. And I think you asked for Jen to take over this one.
Kathy, thank you. So the first question, what is the reason for the elimination of retained earnings in the transportation budget? I think that was a combination of a small increase in the operating revenue. We reduced or pushed ahead a couple items on the capital program that we didn't think were going to be done this year. So that took some money away from the expenditure part, and it looks like the operating budget is a little bit lower as far as the staff is fairly new compared to we had retirements and a few newer folks come in. So I think with the combination of all of that, there wasn't a need for the retained earnings to help balance the budget. And Holly and Melissa can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I'll just chime in real quick. The reason we used so much in retained earnings in fiscal year 20, and I think I see a possible typo there, but the reason we used so much in FY25 was for the capital. We had much larger capital expenses in FY25, so we had to use retained earnings to cover those capital expenditures. We don't have as much capital this year. As a matter of fact, we only have one capital item, so we did not need the use of retained earnings to balance the budget. Lower capital expenditures.
Next question, why
I
are
have
the
a-
objective? Oops,
I
sorry.
have a point of order. Councilor Walker is now present.
Hi, Alicia. I'll just make sure you can hear and we can hear you.
Yes, thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
Sorry.
And you'll find that Tom Porter is also present.
Ah,
Oh, okay.
Tom.
I
Yeah,
am,
I don't
I
have
am
any
present.
list.
I'm late, but present.
Thanks. Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay, why are the objectives only parking and car related? And what objectives could there be to expand public transportation options? I personally have not had the opportunity to look at anything more than parking for objectives. So welcome any comments or suggestions going forward for the upcoming year. So I don't know if anyone has any questions or comments on that before we go to the next one. Okay, how do we improve the collection rate of tickets issued? So we have had a little snag with we have a connection with the Registry of Motor Vehicles to share information to be able to send out late notices and mark parking tickets. With the RMV, there's been a little snag in that connection, and we've been working to get that straightened out. So that's kind of delayed some of the correspondence that goes out, and we are manually marking parking tickets instead of using a file to import and have it go a lot quicker. So with that snag and losing a long-term employee and having newer folks and now having a position frozen, we're doing our best to get that back in line and get those rates back up. Good news, our parking enforcement has recently picked up on booting out-of-state plates for parking tickets as well. So that's gonna help boost that a little bit. And I saw Melissa's hand up, but I don't know if
Melissa? Your hand was up and it went back down, I think.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, I didn't know if you guys were, when you talked about expanding transportation options, I mean, most of the transportation in the town of Amherst is handled by the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. We don't operate buses and vans in the community per se, with the exception of the Council on Aging, I know is running a van service, but that is unrelated to this operation. So that question sort of confused me. So I just wanted to remind people that that's how we don't have a municipal bus service. It's part of a regional transportation system. And so changes to routes and availability of routes need to be managed through the PVTA. And I believe we have a representative on that board. And sometimes they do talk about rate changes. I mean, not rate and route changes at that committee.
Thank you. Bob, I see your hands up.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, I take what you say, Melissa, that we don't really run the buses, but just from my experience, I mean, I live in a relatively new development, and the closest bus stop is more than a mile away, no matter which way I go. And if you want to expand public transportation, you need to expand or change the routes so that it's going through people's neighborhoods in a way that makes it accessible to people. I mean, I couldn't go to the grocery store and cart groceries home, over a mile. I just couldn't do it. And so that's a real problem that needs to be looked into if you want to expand things.
Okay, on to the next question. How will the transfer of accessible parking tickets to the new commission affect revenues to the transportation fund? My understanding is this is only the handicap tickets that are in question, and I don't think it's going to have a big effect because the last couple of years it hasn't even been $3,000 in money collected, so not a big dollar amount. When was the last time parking rates were reviewed? With the removal of the Main Street lot, should the rates for the Spring Street lot be reconsidered? They had different rates. So last time this was reviewed was back in 2022 when I worked with Sean on revamping the parking permit fees to make them structured for the residents as far as cars being registered to Amherst or outside of Amherst. It is good practice to review all these rates annually, so we will definitely take a look at this going forward this year. Where's the CVS lot on the service level list? It's technically named the North Pleasant Street lot because the town doesn't own the CVS lot. We just all know it as that lot behind CVS and can identify it that way. But it's actually named the North Pleasant Street lot for service levels.
Mandy?
So then where's the Price Street lot under service levels?
Do we not have that one on there?
That's why there was one missing and I wasn't sure which one it was. I assumed the North Pleasant Street lot was the Price Street lot. But if that's the town's CVS lot, then where's the Price Street lot?
We don't have that one on here. These lots, we are able to get that information easily with the kiosks and the Park Mobile app. I believe the Price Street lot still has post meters in it. So when the post meters are collected, all the post meter money is intermingled. So once that gets updated and has the pay kiosks, we'll be able to separate that out.
I thought it had Park Mobile numbers associated with it and it wasn't just metered.
It does have Park Mobile. I believe this is just for the kiosks though, but I'll have to get back to you on that that.
Thank you.
Yep.
So we lost a major revenue source when we eliminated the one. I'm just looking at the revenues we're bringing in, but that's okay. It's gone.
Well, I wonder if it was made up with the increase in the per space revenues across nearly every lot.
Well,
in town.
The last revenue I had, Mandy, probably keep it was 55,000, so I could add them all up and not quite get up to that amount. It was just the turnover was so high there, and it was so. But in any case, we lost it.
Yeah, we're just reported on per space in the service level, so it's hard to say what the actual full revenue was, and every per space revenue has gone up since Main Street lot was lost.
Yeah. So I guess there's one general overall question, then we should turn to rates. And I just want to,
So,
Guilford, if you can.
If I can interrupt you for a second, Guilford and Amy aren't here because part of town lost power.
Oh,
And they don't have power in the building.
well, then I
So-
think we won't discuss water and sewer rates then.
Yeah, so they said they would come back, you know, as soon as they had power, and they'll call me when they do. I will say that I lost power where I'm sitting right now as well. So I don't know how people are doing. So I just want to
So
put that out there. So
I had
anyway,
lost
you were
it
gonna
and
finish?
it came back on about 2 minutes later.
So can we take down the screen, screen sharing so that I can see everyone then? Because maybe while we're waiting, I have one completely unrelated piece. Last night at the council meeting, the issue of minutes was raised, and a process that I think we proposed, but we didn't get a formal vote on, is that we would delegate review and finalizing and posting to one person. And so Bob Hegner was willing to do all of the 2024s. Andy was going to do the 2023s, and Kathy was going to do 2025s. But I'm not sure we ever took a formal vote saying that's okay. So this is one of the reasons it's not showing up on the Finance Committee's agenda with, if I put them all on, we would be up to maybe 30 sets of minutes that have been read by multiple eyes. So if people approve that way of getting the minutes out from our SharePoint draft mode onto posting, Finance, if you look at the minutes on our website, you won't find them. I guess my proposal is that system that, and this year we picked current chairs during this year. Most recent chair is doing the last year, so we can always revisit that next year. Do people approve that method? And I think I need to put it to a formal vote so that Athena is then authorized to post them once we tell her we have reviewed them. Mandy?
So I guess I don't see any minutes unless they're folded into SharePoint packets, because there's no folder that says minutes. There's this URL, and no, you know, which is a different issue. But I remember us doing it for the outstanding 2023 minutes. I thought when we came on as a new council, there might have been some outstanding minutes, and we did that. I didn't realize we'd done it for 2024.
We didn't do it. It was proposed. I thought I proposed it in January when I saw how many were, but Athena can say, we've got a whole separate SharePoint thing called minutes that maybe not everyone has access to. Athena, you can describe what you've opened up for us.
It's a OneDrive folder, Mandy, that's not connected to the Finance Committee's share site, because Kathy and I had talked about this process of Kathy and Bob and Andy reviewing those. So there are all the minutes from 2023 are in there, and Andy is authorized by the committee to review and approve those. And then, as Kathy mentioned, there was conversation about Bob going in and reviewing the 2024 minutes and approving those, but I couldn't recall, and neither could Kathy, that the committee formally voted to authorize Bob to do that on the committee's behalf. And so when we had a conversation last night, we had hoped to clarify that with the committee today so that everybody's on the same page. Bob can go ahead and do that, and we can post the minutes from 2024. And then Kathy has begun reviewing the minutes from 2025. And if the committee is okay with that process, then Kathy can continue to do that, and we can post them once they've been reviewed.
So Mandy, so this was a way of expediting it and not having to have the whole committee see them. So go ahead.
Yeah, no, I guess my question is, how caught up are the minutes in draft form then, given that other committees have almost no draft minutes for the last year? Does this committee have draft minutes nearly caught up, and we just have to approve them?
The answer is yes. You know, we had, when I looked at 2025, Athena's done this like you might want to look at the folder because I just put 3 more in. So the 2025s were through March. Maybe there was one April, you know, and the 2024s were complete. And Bob, I'll have to double check. I think Bob did all of them, maybe without one. And it was an issue even with one of the meetings we had where they were in our agenda and we looked at them. I thought we approved them because the minutes I was reading for 2025 said we approved them, but even those weren't there. So I thought we could just, they exist. And Athena has usually already reviewed them from what the minute taker did. You know, I mean, they're in quite good shape in terms of both the format being consistent. So So that was the process. And then what I can do is once we've done that, people can look at them. They can see them on the website, and if there's anything they want to bring back in. But I just wanted to get, is that process work for people as a way of expediting approval?
I'll make a motion.
Okay,
So I move to delegate the approval of Finance Committee 2024 meeting minutes to Bob Hegner and the approval of Finance Committee 2025 minutes to Kathy Shane.
I second it. I'll put it to a vote. Mandy?
Aye.
Kathy's a yes. Bob?
Aye.
Andy?
Aye.
And we have Alicia,
Yes.
Bernie,
Support.
and Thomas.
I support.
Okay, that's unanimous.
Thank you.
And just so you know, the understanding is Andy has been delegated 2023 already. So that's the workhorses are working on behalf of the committee.
Okay, Kathy,
Yes,
I have also lost power, so I've rejoined the meeting using my phone and the Zoom app on my phone, which is being a little flaky. So I have no way of raising my hand,
okay. Well, then
but I'm here.
then just speak up. We can see, actually, when you talk, a little light blinks if you want to know. We can see you're active. So we have lost, though, we've lost DPW, and you know, the other item were the rates, and looking at them, and there's a process where we'll be doing a hearing, and if the Finance Committee has looked at the rates and is ready to say we approve them or we have questions on them, we can have a draft report that we can speak to. There's a change in the regulations that's pretty much just puts the rates in each year. So there's two things we have to read, and the other is the actual rates. Mandy?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the budgets of those funds already. I'm not sure the budgets can decrease. The rates have to be what they are to support the budget. So I mean, we've known they're extensive increases, but we've known they're coming. Because we have a lot of capital projects that are necessary. So I'm okay waiting for DPW, Amy and Guilford to be able to rejoin for the rates, but I'm not sure I have many questions about it, because if the budget, if we're okay with the budget and the budget seems to be what it needs to be, to me, there's not much we can do about the rate at this point, that it kind of just has to be there, and we have a duty as a council to explain why it's such a large jump.
And Bob, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with Mandy, except I'm not sure that the rates are high enough, to be honest with you. I think I worry about our infrastructure, both the water, but especially the sewer, especially in light of the public comment. I don't know if Paul was here, but it worries me that we may have to revisit the rates partway through the year if something bad happens. You know, if we have a catastrophic failure at the waste treatment plant, I don't know how we're going to pay for it. So, Paul,
So I see Melissa's hand is up too. I was thinking that way too. Bob, we could write our report as saying there may be a need to adjust these because we've got some pending capital pieces. Melissa and then Andy. Melissa?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were gonna let someone else speak first. I just wanted to say that we have an agreement with the university that we submit to them in advance our increases. As you can recognize, these increases are significant. And I think that we did our best to come close to the number that we had advertised to the university in the winter as to what the increases would be. We built in pretty carefully with Guilford and Amy's help, these significant increases in the capital that we know to be coming. And so part of that capital expenditure and those big increases is to review what is coming down the path of, you know, infrastructure improvements that we need to do. I feel like I'm one of these, and I don't remember them off the top of my head, but one of these increases is over 20%, which is fairly significant. And I feel like, you know, maybe we should have been increasing it more significantly year over year in the past 3 to 5 years to get to this point. And this is sort of a true up, but I anticipate that when we get that information back on the study that Amy and Guilford are going to undertake specifically for the wastewater treatment plant, that then we will have additional increases coming. So there's an adjustment this year, and there will probably be a significant increase next year, maybe not as great as this one. Hopefully, you know, we've trued up to some point, but then we're going to have to continue to increase over time. But to do anything more without the backup feels a little we need to get those studies, understand what the infrastructure costs are, and then adjust accordingly to that. So that's sort of my thought on how we went about this. And at that same time, to your point earlier in the meeting, Mandy Jo, we were going to look at, is our rate setting appropriate? You know, what Amherst's been doing, what is best for Amherst, and have, you know, a third, or maybe it was Bernie who said this, have a third party look at, you know, our process for setting rates so that we don't find ourselves in this sort of like, we had all this deferred maintenance and we're now making this large adjustment. So yes, yes, could we have done more? We did sort of some things that we had hoped to do cash capital, we couldn't afford to do in the projection that we had originally done. And so we had to borrow for that. And that's why we were able to stretch some of that out a little bit longer. But unfortunately, what we will know when we get that study done on the wastewater system, and the water system is almost complete, is how much it will really cost us to do the infrastructure improvements that we are looking at. So that's sort of my thought on that.
Andy?
Yeah, actually, it's good order, because my question boils down to a follow-up to what you just said, Melissa, and that is how much once we get the bottom line of what it is it's gonna cost to do what we need to do and probably should have done a long time ago, can we use debt in order to manage over time the increases and the ability of smoothing a little bit going forward in the inevitable increases?
I think that was a question of you, Melissa, and or Paul. Yeah.
So I will say that unfortunately, I watched the news last night, and rates are going up. Not, you know, so yes, I think that that's sort of a tool that we have to use, but unfortunately that tool is not as economical as maybe it was a month ago. So
Is of interest.
I think that's sort of a necessary way that we have to manage long-term obligations, just like you would in your personal life or in a business. You know, like you can't buy a house with cash anymore. You're going to have to mortgage that. I think that, yes, we're going to have to use debt, but the unfortunate reality is that what is coming is interest costs increasing, which just means that, yes, we can spread that increase over time, but it will cost us unfortunately that much more. Whereas in years past, or the last, 5 years or so, we've been able to capitalize on, or maybe even 10, I think, lower interest rates. I think that shift has begun to change now, and we'll have to adjust to that as those things come up.
So it sounds like everyone, I mean, given Bob, what I just heard is that likely some of the rates will need to be higher, but we don't have the information yet to know. And so the rates right now are based on what is known. And so
Yeah, I agree. I agree. It makes sense. But I am a little concerned about catastrophic failures in our systems.
well,
And
I
there's
can
nothing we
draft
do about it, but
I can draft a report that emphasizes those concerns, that we're in a, yes, the rates are up, particularly on one, quite a bit, but the studies that need to be done haven't been done yet, and we should be prepared. This isn't the end of it. Mandy, I mean, I might be able to word it a little bit more eloquently than that.
That's exactly what I was going to say, though. I think our report should say these are large increases this year, but this is probably not the end of large increases, and here's why. Because I think we need to manage expectations of our water and sewer users. That it's coming, and it's coming because we have some large infrastructure projects that need done to maintain sanitary water and sewer systems, which is an essential service. With that, I would say, given this, we might not need Guilford and Amy to come back to a meeting.
Right. Yeah, I don't think
Thinking
that
about staff time.
Bernie?
Okay. Yeah, I just like to say that I share my concerns about gas strikes. What happens after strikes? The only you always have with water and sewer is that it's hidden, literally. You don't see the pipes, you don't see the condition of them, you don't see what's happening, the corrosion, and the other stuff that takes when you place metal and caustic movements. So I think we're right to say that there will be more costs coming. This is not the end of it. And this is really a choice issue. It's not going to all of a sudden all of us can start drilling wells in our backyard to get our own water. So we need to make sure that we have adequate funding for what will be in place now, for what knows coming. And I just think it's good practice to add on to your rates. Some fact that the Department of Revenue long ago Fairway said 5% would be good to begin to set aside for future projects and for those emergencies. So I would agree that we don't have to have the government company back. I think they're aware what the rates are, and we need to give a commitment and move forward.
Thank you. So then I will make Mandy always makes the motions more specifically, but I was going to make a motion that we recommend that the council approve the water rates as presented, and we'll have to do the latest memo to make sure we're referring to it, and the accompanying changes in the regulations. I'm doing it as one motion. If I need to make it two motions, Mandy, let me know. Yeah.
Did you want sewer included in that? You only talked about water.
No, exactly, to approve water and sewer rates as presented. Yes, thank you. And then the accompanying changes in the regulations that reflect the revised rates.
I'll second that.
And I will put it to a vote if there's no further discussion, and I'm not seeing any hands up. So Mandy?
Aye.
Kathy's a yes. Bob?
Aye.
Andy?
Aye.
Bernie?
Support.
Thomas? Tom?
Support.
And Alicia?
Yes.
It's unanimous with both residents. So I will draft a short report on this. The next council meeting is June 2nd, so we have a little bit of time, and get a draft out to make sure I captured the kinds of messaging we want to do with this recommendation, that it's not just a go ahead and say yes. You know, if we could, but Paul, I'm not really recommending this, but I thought the tour that we had of the wastewater treatment plant, and when I asked when most of this was put in, it was the last time the federal government had a capital project that paid for municipal infrastructure, it was not just old, but it was from an era where the federal government actually believed in revenue sharing as opposed to taking money away from state and municipal governments. I was working on federal issues when I watched it going from revenue sharing to block grants to less than block grants to, that the income tax we pay doesn't come back to us. So I don't think we can include pictures, but I thought it was, and I think I wrote Guilford a note at the time, it was extremely good to take the council on those tours. They were eye-opening, what we were seeing and the conditions we were watching people work in because of the infrastructure of the plant, the condition of the workspace. So we will get a bit of a flavor of that. And it is 2:45 miraculously. We seem to have gone through a huge number of questions. And I see Paul's hand is up.
Yeah, just a quick update about the power outage. So there are 5,000 customers affected. There's a failure at the College Street substation, mostly College Street, Route 9, U Drive. So no estimate yet for the restoration of power. So,
But is it going to affect the mics at the raising of the?
They're portable.
Great.
Battery, yeah. I think we'll be fine out there.
I just received my robocall from Eversource that says it'll be fixed by 4:30.
Yeah.
Right.
We'll see.
I still have power, so.
Yeah, well,
And I only lost it for like 3 minutes. I was in the middle of typing a text to Kathy that said I might disappear when my battery backup on the Wi-Fi goes, but
I think Bob just invited everybody to his house.
No, it's safe way up in North Amherst too. I think we're at Mandy's down at the outer edges too. So it is 2:47 and I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
And I'll put that to a vote. Mandy?
Aye.
Kathy's a yes. Bob?
Aye.
Andy?
Aye.
Let me get Alicia?
Yes.
Tom?
Support.
And Bertie?
My phone's at 99%, so I support.
Okay, so we are unanimous. And Paul, I'll send a note. A big thanks to both Guilford and Amy.
Yeah, really.
I thought the answers they gave were thoughtful and went beyond just yeses and nos. They were terrific. So thank you.
Thank you.
We are adjourned at 2:47.